Hello and welcome to the second episode of Innovators in Education. I'm Mike Pennington and I'm here in the North Green Screen Studios at the Lorain County ESC. These web series is brought to you by a grant from the Nord Family Foundation. And our conversation is pretty simple here. We want to meet with great educators and talk about the great things happening in classrooms, talk philosophy, talk practicality, and then really give you the tools you need to start producing change in your classroom. So we'll start at a global view and kind of come down to practicality. And I'm fortunate enough today to be here with Jon Smith. Let me get his info on the board. From the wonderful world of Twitter as the iPod teacher. And we're going to talk about student publishing today and some of the cool things that Jon students have done over the last several years when it comes to digital textbooks and using some products with that. So Jon, hello and good morning.
Hi.
I should also mention we were having some technical difficulties. We were actually live, but we weren't seeing ourselves live, so it's all fixed now. Yay.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. And I'll start off by thanking North and thanking the Nord Family Foundation for allowing me to be here today, and especially thank Alliance City Schools, where I work, for letting me out of work for the day so I can come over here and talk. So thank you very much.
No problem. So why don't you give us, Jon, just a little bit of background of your career in education and how you got to be where you're at now in Alliance.
Sure. I taught 12 years of special ed,
okay.
And then after that I decided to look into technology, and I became more interested in technology and wanted to see if there was something else out there, and I learned about the job in Alliance and applied for the technology resource teacher in Alliance.
Okay.
So basically technology integration mixed in with some IT tech help. And things like that. So do a little bit of everything.
Cool. And again, second guest we've had, not tech people by trade, but doing great things with tech. And I think it's important to stress that we want people to know curriculum and know education that want to take those risks and use those tech tools.
And that's really where I come from, is
Yep.
the education side. Like I mean, the IT side of things is most of the time beyond me. I go to my network manager. Chad, probably 95% of the time, and ask him what
Yep.
to do. To help with situations, but really the putting technology into the classroom is really where I like to be. That's my love.
So let's start, again, we're going to start big and bring it down in, and you're infamous around Northeast Ohio for your keynotes and your Ignite sessions, but they really evolve around this idea of the global refrigerator. So why don't you tell our viewers, explain a little bit what this idea is.
The whole idea of the global refrigerator is basically that our kids in today's day and age with social media and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and whatever else these kids are doing, in that kind of world, when kids are putting their work on one refrigerator,
Yep.
It's not good enough. So if they're putting their work at home, if we're lucky enough to get them to take their work home and show the parents, then they're putting it on their parents' refrigerator or only the teacher's refrigerator. And so that's not good enough. So what I really want is the kids to put their work on everybody's refrigerator, so the world's refrigerator.
Makes sense. Yeah, we need to give those kids that authentic audience that we have. And usually when Jon talks about this and the progress that his kids have made, there's really three big points that Jon brings up, and I want to go through those one at a time. And we're going to start with this idea of well, Jon says the problem is the kids aren't making anything, and I tried to put a positive spin. And I said, number one, they have to make something. So what is it about hands-on or producing something you think that changes how kids see class?
I think that too often, and I don't necessarily think it's anybody's fault, but too often we get stuck giving kids worksheet after worksheet, and in my talk I call it worksheet suckers.
Yep.
We've turned kids into worksheet suckers, and they're like, oh, thanks for the worksheet. Can I have another worksheet? Please give me another one. And I think that when you really take the time to make something, that it really puts some extra deep meaning into what the kids are doing. It gives them some purpose. It gives them some reason for what they're doing, because they're actually going to come up with something at the end. And it's not, I'm filling in bubbles. You're not making anything with bubbles. You're not making anything with fill in the blanks. So, and like I said, I don't care what it is that you make. It could be screencasts. It could be wikis. It could be a website. It could be whatever. It could be something in art class. It could be something in construction class. As long as you're making something. And then for us, like you said, books. That's what we decided that we would start with.
And so you're special ed originally when you started to do some publishing. What led you to decide or to think that that's how you had to get your kids involved in class? Like, what was the epiphany?
Well, it was kind of weird, I guess, because I mean, I was looking at my class, and I was like, why do these kids hate me? Like, why do they why do they hate school? And
it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, and I was like, and I always was one, sometimes people will be like, well, it's the kids, it's their fault, and I wanted to always look back to myself and say, what am I doing, and what am I doing that's not helping? And so I wanted to know why they hated me. What could I do to change that? And I don't think they hated me, but they certainly didn't want to perform in school. And I think some of it was the history, especially with special ed kids. They're told by their friends, they're told by family members, inadvertently told by teachers that maybe you're not good enough. Yep. You're special ed. You have this label, so we're gonna bring things down, and we're not gonna we're gonna try different things, but you're not really gonna do anything special because we have to catch you up. And so that bothered me, and I always believed that these kids could do amazing things if given the opportunity. And so that was kind of the start. That was the catalyst for me. And that they really struggled with writing, and I didn't like writing as a kid much either. And so I was like, maybe we can tackle writing first, because it's a skill that they're going to have when they leave when they leave school and enter the world. So that's how we did. We decided to tackle writing first, and Ibooks Author was introduced, and it was an easy tool that I felt was something that we could use, and we just kind of went from there.
How did you decide on topics? Like, what was it? Because usually John speaks sometimes about the idea of writing prompts and finding books with those, daily writing prompts. The I'm a dog one is the best. I'm a dog. How does my life work? But what is it? I mean, it's one thing to pick a platform. Was that enough to get the kids excited about boring prompts?
Yeah, no, and it wasn't, because, like with my kids, like Mike said, I'd always come up with some kind of goofy writing prompt, like today's pizza day, National Pizza Day. Write about your favorite pizza. Mike's favorite was a dog. Pretend like you're a dog, and we're going to write about the day in the life of a dog, like what happens, when you get up in the morning. You lick your butt, you go downstairs, you get a drink, what happens? Yeah. And so, I always thought kids would like that stuff.
Sure.
And the truth is, they hate it. They think it's total garbage. Yep. And so I basically just said to the kids, once we picked the platform, once I picked it, I thought this would be a cool platform. Yep. I said to the kids, what do we want to write about? And for the first day, we literally stared at each other for 45 minutes because it was just like they kept waiting for me to give them an answer. Yep. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what we're writing about. And the kids were like, yeah, you have to. That's what teachers do. You tell us what to do.
And I was like, well,
yeah, I'm not. So we literally just sat there and stared at each other until finally this one kid raises his hand, and he's like, I've got an idea. And I said, okay, let's hear it. And he's like, well, there's these two kids, and they're surfing the internet one night, and they go on Craigslist. And right then and there, like, teachers, I was like, oh, Craigslist.
What's going to happen next?
Scary, who knows what's going to go on. So I almost squashed him. I was like, almost took his idea and said, no, we're not going to go with that. But I kind of let him go. Yep. And I said, explain more. And he said, well, we're on Craigslist, and we find this town that is struggling. And I was like, okay. And he said, this town is struggling with language arts topics. And I'm like, wait, what? Like,
I love the practicality.
Yeah, I was great. Like, language arts topics? And he's like, yeah, he's like synonyms and antonyms. And I'm like, I was dumbfounded. Like, I just didn't know what was going on.
How did one go?
Yeah, how does this work? And then this other kid's like, yeah, and abbreviations. And then this other kid's like, and similes and metaphors. And I was so confused.
Look how much they know. They know what those words mean.
I was really confused. And they're like, yeah, so we go to this town to help them learn how to do similes and metaphors. And so then it kind of came full circle to me. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. These kids in my class are the kids in the story, and they're going to this town to help them out, but really the town is the kids, and they struggle with language. Yeah. So like I was like, wait a minute. Huh. So really these kids are talking about themselves. Yep. So they're trying to find ways to help themselves out. And these were things that they're actually learning in class. So I was like, all right, let's run with it. Sure. And so that's kind of how we came up with the idea.
From a practicality standpoint, as a teacher who might be thinking about publishing, you chose iBook Authors. Were there already iPads in your classroom? Was this, did you have to get devices? I mean, how did that start? And then, just so I can ask this before I forget, how much did you know about iBooks Author before you jumped full feet into this?
Yeah, those are good questions. Well, the first one, The answer is we didn't have anything.
Okay.
And I know a lot of teachers, like I teach a grad class, and the number one thing when we talk about technology is, well, we don't have any money.
Yep.
You know, we don't have money to do this. So how do we start? Well, I had my own Mac laptop.
Cool.
I brought it in. I had my own iPad. I brought it in, and that's it. That's all we started with.
So the first book was just done on one classroom device?
On one classroom device.
Wow.
And so we really, I let the kids use my stuff. I let them use
Yep.
my iPad. I did most of the typing. The kids wrote all the stuff out on paper. We shared everybody's work, which normally doesn't happen in a classroom full of special ed kids. Like, hey, why don't you get up and read?
Yeah.
It normally doesn't happen much. And so these kids got up and read, and we just chewed apart their work. And we're like, here's what's good, here's what's bad. And we put it all together, everybody's piece, until we had one big chapter 1 and chapter 2 and so forth. And it worked really well. So we just used one device. And then in terms of Ibooks Author, how much experience did I have with it? I think it was maybe 12 hours worth of experience. Literally, the software came out in January on, I don't remember what day it was, but it came out on let's say a Wednesday. That night, I went home and downloaded the software, wrote my own book,
Yeah.
and published my own book just to see if it would work.
See what the process was.
And it was super simple. And I said, I think we can do this. And so
if I can do it,
yeah, if I can do it,
kids can do it.
we can all do it. So I went into class the next day and I said, hey kids, we're going to write a book. And they thought I was nuts. They were like, no, we hate writing. We've told you this before. Why do you keep insisting? And
Quit making us learn.
Yeah. And I said, well, it's different. I said, because
Yeah.
I'm tired of reading your stuff, because it's been garbage in the
Yep.
past. And they kind of looked at me kind of strange. And I said, so instead of me reading your stuff this time, we're gonna put it out there for the whole world. We're gonna publish these books for free. We're gonna let people see it. And the kids just kind of looked at me strange. And then this one kid, who's probably one of my tougher kids, says, well, if we're going to publish for the world, don't you think maybe we should make it better than what we normally do? And I said,
that's the moment,
that's
right?
the point.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of how it started.
And was the openness, because you said like kids stand up and reading, was that open culture where they were okay with that there before? Do you really think that changing your methodology is what gave them that comfort?
I think to an extent it was. I mean, I think it was there. You know, I always said to my kids, feel free to ask any questions. Don't feel dumb. Do whatever.
Yeah.
And that was okay in my room, but maybe in other kids, in other rooms that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And other kids might make fun of them or something. So the getting them up in front of the room was a little bit of a struggle at first, but when they realized the end goal. They realized that it was a necessary evil. We have to do this in order to get where we want to be.
Sure.
So they kind of sucked it up and they dealt with it, and it worked out really well.
That's pretty awesome. And it leads us, I think, into the second point that John likes to make, and that's the idea of this global audience or authentic audience, if you want to use those rigorous terms of the educational world. And I put up a couple screenshots behind here of just some of the pinpoints where your books have been downloaded. And I think it's really interesting to notice that there's a ton from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
I could have put up the whole world map, but I'd love to look at the fact that Europe has them. There's some great spots in Canada. They love you in Chile. I'm not exactly sure why.
I don't know either.
Yeah, and I missed it, but Australia you have downloads. Do you share this with your kids? How much time do you spend specifically saying, look, this is really happening somewhere?
Sure. The very first time that we started selling, the very first book, when it started downloading, I immediately went into the kids the next day and I said, look at this. We had 16 people around the world who bought your book for free, and they love it. And the kids were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Can we go out in the hall and graph it? And I almost fell over because I was like, wait, time out. That's math.
That's learning.
So,
put it away.
That's cross-curricular learning, So we went to the art room and we rolled off paper and we graphed it in the hallway.
You were doing Common Core before Common Core.
Common Core, that's right,
pre-Common
Core.
Sorry for putting that on you.
It was really interesting. And then I started telling kids, I was like, hey, we sold one in the United States. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then, Chile, and then, Canada and Germany. And these kids, they were just like floored by the fact that was happening. One of my favorite stories actually is a lady I work with, Pam. She's a speech teacher. And she and I worked with some of her autistic students on creating a book, social skills, because they were really bad with social skills and really bad at writing. So we decided to write a book about how to have proper social skills.
Makes sense.
And so Pam really took this whole idea of this globe thing and stepped it up a notch and she put a map out in the hallway, and every time a book was downloaded in a different country, she'd stick a little pin in it. And so these kids who were kind of the outcasts of the school became like superstars, not only globally, but in their own buildings. And kids were just curious. They're like, well, what does that mean? You know, and the kids were like, well, we sold a book there. And the kids in the rest of the building were like, well, that's crazy. How did you do that? You know, and so it opened up conversations from some general ed kids to the special ed kids that may not have happened. So it was really an interesting, powerful experience. This idea of having an audience that's not just your teacher.
Yeah. Now, so going global was pretty easy. You just have your kids published. But the culture and moving this project, did it expand in the building? Like you said, the speech teacher got on board with this. You're doing some ELA things. As the kids and teachers started noticing, did you become kind of that outcast guy that's doing crazy stuff, and why do kids like that? Or was it, how do we incorporate this, or what can I do?
Right. I think when it started, to be honest, I think I was, people were kind of like, he's crazy. I can't believe what this guy's trying to do.
Yeah.
And after about the first 3 books that we did, it was kind of a moment. And then, like I said, I came to Alliance, and I brought this idea with me to Alliance, and I had Chris Schillig is one of my English teachers in our building, and he just kind of jumped all over it. And before we knew it, by the end of that year, Chris and I and his students had published, I think, 3 or 4 books.
Wow.
In just a few month period. And then after that, it just kind of started snowballing from there. I got a couple other teachers involved. I got some other disciplines involved in some ideas. And then I met Pam, and we decided to go with this. Somebody in their infinite wisdom decided to put me in charge of mentoring another tech person in our district.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought they were crazy for asking me to be the mentor.
You're going to give me responsibility
for somebody.
With adults? Yeah.
But they did, and when I was talking with Carlin about things that she could do, tech to integrate with her kids, obviously I went straight to the book idea, and she kind of looked at me crazy, and she's like, John, I'm in kindergarten. This is an early learning school. I'm not sure you know what you're talking about here. You're
reading
at the high,
or writing yet.
You're at the high school. I'm at the kindergarten. Like, how are we going to manage this? And I said, let's just try it. See what happens. And so at this point, I wasn't even part of the process. I shared the idea with her, and then she kind of ran with it. And by the time we were done, the entire kindergarten building, the principal decided that it was a good idea that everybody did something.
Oh, wow.
So by the time the year was over, the kindergarten school alone had published 15 books of things that the kindergartners were learning.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I get that same kind of question, like, well, kindergarten kids can't write. What are they doing? Well, they can. They can write. And even if they can't physically, write a full sentence because they're not learning all that stuff quite yet,
exactly,
they can tell a teacher a sentence. A teacher can write it
down,
and then the kid can then copy that or type that onto an iPad, and that's what we ended up doing.
Wow.
And it was pretty amazing stuff to have.
So your kindergarten class leaves as published authors.
That's correct.
Did anyone ever, and I have to say this because I know people are thinking this or will ask me, did anyone ever go, wait, they're under the age of 13, we can't put them on the internet?
Well, you know what? I didn't have anybody. Like I said, I'm very happy to be in Alliance, and we're very open with trying things. We make sure that we have permission slips for all these kids, and we make sure that the parents understand, really first and foremost how cool this really is going to be for their kids, and then we let them go from there. And we've had parents who've said, I don't want my kid's picture in the book. I don't want my kid's name in the book for safety reasons,
which is all
and things like that. And that's fine, but you know what? The kid's writing can still be there because it's school, and we're going to do work.
And
so,
it's schoolwork.
So we've had a few anonymous kids in our books, but
they know they're there.
They know they're there.
They know they can take those. Yeah. I just put up the 2 Kids in Desert Town, which was the first book, and we checked these stats this morning. So over 10,000 downloads in 47 countries. And what grade was that book written with?
The 2 Kids in Desert Town was 5th grade.
So you've done 5th grade. You're in high school now.
Yeah, that was 5th grade special ed. We've had kids, basically every grade level from K to 12, we've had at least participate in publishing a book.
Man, and I should also say, if you go to North's website and click on any of the images that we're putting up behind me in the presentation, it'll take you to Jon's site. So you can actually follow those links to get to iTunes to download those resources as well. I should point that out so that we can bump those. I wish that was a live counter, then we could just keep going.
Yeah, we would love that.
Someone told me iTunes was down this morning.
Yeah, iTunes is down, so you may not be able to download it now, but get there. And at one point, one of our books was the 4th top downloaded free textbook in iTunes.
Wow.
We made a group of 6th graders and I helped put together a math textbook.
Yeah.
And at one point, we were the 4th top downloaded textbook out of 160 textbooks. So we were beating some major publishers in there, and it was pretty cool. So I'd love to see that happen again.
And that's a pretty important thing you point out. You're not just doing kids' fiction.
Correct.
You've got kids writing textbook-grade material.
Correct.
A lot of teachers say with Common Core and changing standards, and books are really expensive, and I can't get materials, there's no reason why a group of teachers can't sit down and create their math book.
Absolutely not.
With kids even.
Right, with kids. Right. I mean, I'm a big fan of, I think that certain websites are really cool and certain ideas are really cool, but when you look at the deep level of it, it's really the teachers or it's really these organizations that are building this information. And I'm a big fan of kids making the stuff. So, in our math textbook, we've got screencasts and, samples and interactive quizzes and things that these kids are putting together.
Well, and that's important, too, when you say textbook, everyone thinks, here's an image on a page, here's text. But with iBooks, you're not limited to just that. So you can have interactive features or multimedia features in there, right?
Correct. It really, when it came out, I think now even, it's still kind of a new idea.
Yeah.
But, this interactive book idea, but when it first came out, it was strange. I mean, it was like, what do you mean there's going to be a video in a book? What do you mean there's an interactive quiz? How can I put a keynote inside of a book, like that kind of thing? And so it really does push the envelope. And I'm even learning more from some of my friends on Twitter, of how to put even more things into books. So the future is really pretty cool.
We need a new catchphrase for digital books. It's not good enough of a name.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound awesome enough.
Right. Yeah. It's different.
Did you ever think of selling the textbook?
I've had a few people ask me that. They're like, do you think about selling it? And a couple things, I guess, come to mind. And I told my very first kids this because they asked me that question. They're like, why?
Oh, they were probably,
They were like, well, why don't we sell it for money?
Let's make some money.
Let's make some cash, And I said, well, here, Apple gets their cut of the cash. And I said, so really, I'm not going to hand you your 10 cents and your 10 cents. And then 20 years from now, if we sell a book, I'm not going to try to hunt you down to give you your money. And so, at this point, we've done the free piece because I think if the kids realize that there isn't this money aspect on the end of it, that it's really just the fact that people care about your stuff, that should be good enough.
Yeah.
And for my students so far, it has been. I've had a few people who said, it'd be kind of cool if we could, create a district account and sell books for fundraisers and things like that. And I think that'd be a really cool idea. It's just something that my district and I have not really pursued beyond the idea point, because right now I just like to give stuff away.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, and Garth talked about it last week, this idea of moving away from points and grades. If we're just moving to money, then we're just, it's another carrot that we're dangling. We want our kids to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's awesome, and I want to talk about the newest project that you're in now, because it's definitely a huge extension on this idea of digital writing, and it's hashtag Twima2. Correct. Is it Twima or Twima?
It's Twima, and it stands for The World Is My Audience.
And this is the second one. So what was Twima 1?
Well, so it actually started even before Twima. Somebody on Twitter one night they posted a comment and said, I'm looking to do some kind of interactive poetry project or some kind of poetry project. Anybody have any ideas?
Yeah.
And so I tweeted back to, her name was Ashley. I tweeted back to Ashley and I said, have you ever thought about making an iBook and publishing an iBook with your students? And she's like, no, I haven't really thought about that. Can you tell me more? And I said, well, it'd be kind of cool. We could use the Book Creator app. We could do, your kids could write a poem. I could find some kids to write a poem, and we could collaborate on this poetry book together. And she's like, oh, wow, that'd be really cool. I'm in. And then before I knew it, another guy was in. And I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute.
Like, oh, no, it's taking off.
I had two teachers, one teacher in North Carolina, one teacher in South Carolina, and then I found a teacher in Alliance who wanted to be part of it too. And so before we knew it, I had 3 teachers who agreed to be part of the project, and I wasn't even sure if it could be done. So I had to make it work, and sure enough, we found a way to make it work. So we had those 3 teachers and 3 classrooms come together and we created a poetry book with second graders.
Oh, wow.
And it was really amazing. So I kind of went off of that and said, how can I step up the game? And so again on Twitter one night I just sent out a tweet and said I want one teacher from one classroom from every country and every state in the world to be part of a project called Twima. And that was it. And I said, what do you? I made a Google form, just had people sign up. I'd send out letters and pretty much that was it. And then people would just send me their files through Book Creator or Word documents or Google documents, and I would cut and paste and put them all together. Some of them were really, really cute. The kids the teacher would send me an email and say, here's the poems. Little Johnny's poem. He wants a magenta background with white letters, and he would like a picture of a dog in the bottom left-hand corner. Because they didn't have access to the iPad apps.
Now they sound like professional authors.
So these kids really put a lot of thought into the design of what they wanted their pages to look like.
Yeah.
And so I spent 8 months working with teachers on the original Twima project, trying to get it off the ground. And sure enough, 8 months later, we published a book, and The World Is My Audience. And it was really interesting to see the different styles of poetry, the different types of writing the kids could put in there. And so that kind of leads to Twima 2. And again, I wanted to step up my game. Right there. And
you got a lot of countries in red there.
So right now that's kind of where we're at. And I think it's even updated this morning, but we have 85 teachers around the world who have committed to being part of the project. Now, whether we get 85 at the when it's all said and done, we may not. I think with the original Twima, we had 100 teachers signed up, and we ended up with 35 classrooms in 22 different countries, which is still
That's pretty
still really cool.
I really don't think it's happening anywhere else.
So I decided this time, let's see what happens. We got 85 people signed up, and I've got a couple people on Twitter, Melvina, Beverly, and Justin, and Andrew, who all decided to kind of help me out this time and say, it was a lot of work on your part last time. Let's see if we can put a team effort together. And so we decided this time we were really going to try to bring our A game and do something really different. And so Justin is an English teacher, and he had some really, really cool ideas about creating a form story. And so, this overarching theme followed by all these little underlying themes throughout the story. And I love the idea, but it was getting difficult to understand how kids from kindergarten through 12th grade were going to be able to work with that.
Yeah.
So we kind of tweaked the idea a little bit, the group and I, and we decided that what we'd do is we were going to do a book on dreams. So this book is all about dreams. So student dreams, real dreams that they have at night, dreams they want for the world, academic dreams, historical dreams, things, I had a dream last night that I was Abraham Lincoln, or, whatever, just all these different kinds of dreams. And so the first phase of the process is teachers and kids writing their dreams.
Okay.
A paragraph or two about their dreams.
Yeah.
The second phase of the process then is we're going to take those dreams, and we're going to send those stories, those dreams, out to teachers who are willing to make media for the book. They're not necessarily interested in writing in the book, but they have students in interactive media classes and things like that who are interested in creating videos or photo galleries or interactive widgets or something for the book. So they're going to take the dreams, they're going to make the interactive media for it, for the book, and then we're going to take all of those pieces and hand them over to Justin's high school students, who are then going to try to weave all of those dreams together into one giant overarching story.
Wow.
And we're going to try to have it done by June. So we went 8 months last time. We're going to try to push this one out a little bit quicker.
That's some real depth of knowledge writing.
There's a lot.
Take that part tests.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes there. And I truly believe, we talk about testing, and I think that through a process of making and creating and contributing together, I think if we do that, I think the tests will take care of themselves. I agree. Yeah. I don't think we'll have any problems with the tests.
And I can only imagine when your kids go to fill out college entrance exams, go to job interviews, and instead of having a 3-page resume, they have a link. And the person that's going to employ you can click on that link and see 18 countries that you've collaborated with already. I mean, I always run into people that never really meet the people on their team live. It's always, we work virtually from our homes, and we create this amazing stuff. So how far are you along in the process of Twima 2 at the moment?
What is today March 11th?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so we're 11 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just
just started in March.
The official start date was March 1st. So March to April is the writing. April to May is the media section. Groups are supposed to kick in, and then May to June is the final wrap up part.
So teachers still have time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to turn anybody down.
No, I don't want your kids' work.
I actually had teachers in the original project submitting poems to me after we had already published the book.
Wow.
Because they had some things happen and they weren't able to get it in on time. And so all I had to do was go through and take that, add it to the book, and submit a change to Apple, and it's in. So absolutely, we'll take people whenever.
That's really cool. Yeah, so make sure to check out Twima. If you're not on Twitter, I'm a huge Twitter fan. Obviously, Jon is too. It's a great spot to meet other educators, and not just other educators, but people in other professions and other industries. I follow a lot of creative people because it helps me to be a little bit more creative. So a lot of amazing things happening. Again, remember on North's website, you can get to all of these links. Let me put that up real quick. On our Innovators in Education page, all these images are here, and everything is linked. Jon's mug is even up there for right now. So feel free to get hold of us through there and communicate with us to get things done and to become part of this project.
That might be the only good picture I've ever taken.
I don't even know when that was from, but you look so young.
I don't either.
So proud of you. So I got a final set of questions. I forget that James Lipton always does those big 5 questions, so I figure I'll be an interviewer like James Lipton. So I've got 5 questions that I ask Garth. I will ask you, and all the other people have to suffer through these as well. So the first one, what's one thing you would change today in education if you had the power?
I think it goes back to making stuff. I really think kids need to be making things, and I think we should. And I'm not saying all worksheets are bad, but I think we should take away some of that meaningless work and just really focus on creating stuff. In those books that the very first book we did, I was asked if I could back up what we did with some standards, and I said, just a couple? Sure, let me go look. And so I went through the standards books at the time and we covered 77 standards in 2 weeks. And so I think that...
So the no time excuse doesn't hold much water with you.
Yeah, I don't have time to cover all the standards. Sure you do. We did in 2 weeks. We covered 77 of them. So I really think that making and creating things is important. I think we need to do more of it.
What's one thing you would keep the same? What's working?
There's a lot of passionate educators out there, and I want to applaud them, and I work with a lot of them, and I appreciate every teacher that I go to with a crazy idea that says, all right,
let's see what happens. Let's
give it a chance, and the same thing with the Alliance as a district. They're always open for me to try new things, and so I think that's what's working. I think there's passion, and I think there's a lot of people who are willing to try new things.
One long-term career goal. By the time you retire, what do you want to be able to say you accomplished?
That's a tough one. I mean, I guess
that's a tough one. That's right.
I really just want I want kids to have purpose for what they do in school, and so my long-term goal, I guess, is to keep doing what I'm doing with publishing, or if eventually books dies out and there's a new tool. Again, it's not books, I guess it's important, but it's the idea that kids are publishing for somebody other than their teacher. And so I want kids to understand that there's a big, big, big world out there, and there's a lot of people who care about what they want to say, and there's a lot of kids who have a lot of talent that I think that they can use.
Yeah, and the tools will change. I mean, you don't want to get stuck in a rut. Worksheets become a rut. You don't want iBooks to become a rut or whatever it might be. Yeah. What's one goal by the end of the year? I think I know what this one would be.
Well, the goal by the end of the year is to make sure that Twima actually comes together. I want to make sure that it works. I got to back up what my mouth put out, so I got to make sure that it gets put together.
And then best day in your career so far. If you could pick one best day.
You know what? I think there's so many good stories that I have of success with kids and things, like just little moments here and there. And we were talking about one of my students giving me a bar of soap for a Christmas gift, and it meant a lot to that kid.
Yep.
And it meant a lot to me. But I think most recently the best moment of my teaching career with kids has to be a student, one of the autistic boys. that worked with Pam, the speech lady. And at the very beginning of the process, was not interested in doing any kind of writing whatsoever. Was not interested in being part of this book at first. Once he realized that other people could see his work, then he became more interested.
Sure.
But we went from, with this student, we went from not caring about writing one bit and hating every second of it, to me having to force him to leave the room to go to lunch.
Wow.
Like the kid wanted to skip lunch and skip recess so
write.
he could continue to write. And that to me was a really powerful moment for me. So it was a great moment as an educator to sit and see that student flip the switch.
Yeah.
From get me out of here to you're going to have to drag me out of here kicking
more.
and screaming because I want to do more.
Not a lot of 5-paragraph essay writers that are willing to skip lunch.
No, not
do that.
not
I
many.
hate to put that down, but so that's awesome, John. I appreciate you coming and talking today about the great things that you're doing over in Alliance. I'd like to thank the Nord Family Foundation again for funding this project in this Innovators in Education series. We'll get all of this up on YouTube and everything archived through North's website. One day we'll actually walk you through the green screen studio too, so you can see what isn't all around us
It's
as
cool.
we sit here and try to do this. So hope you gain something out of this. If you're a teacher out there, take one thing, start something. I think the important thing, like John has been saying, take that risk, take that leap, and just decide to see if something's going to work or not. Yeah. This is the perfect time of year to do it. We have a small window with assessments going on right now, at least in Ohio. But as the year winds down and people stop, I don't want to say stop teaching, but we start to see summer break. And I think this is a great time to get creativity out of kids and take that chance. So again, I appreciate everyone watching and everyone that will watch. And we will see you on the 3rd episode next week when we talk about the Dick and Jane Project out of Columbus, Ohio.
All right.